Hi, this is Dom Pizzuto, and thanks for checking out my Trends in EdTech presentation on blended learning. Blended learning at its basic is some education that's part face-to-face and part online learning. Uh, we may have had an online class at the university level that had part online meetings and part in-class meetings. The definition is a bit broad though. So for the purposes of this presentation, I prefer the more nuanced definition, which is to integrate online with traditional face-to-face class activities in a planned and pedagogically valuable manner. It's this last part that really brings this definition to my liking. Pedagogically valuable means the nature of the way that we organize the blending or the hybridization of the online and face-to-face learning needs to add value. So how do we do that? Well, there are many different definitions of the models of blended or hybrid learning, but the one that I chose for my purposes was the one presented by blendedlearning.org. There are 7 models reviewed there. The first and probably most familiar to any elementary or early childhood teacher is station rotation. It very much mirrors centers and is pictured in the gray down here. Um, This has a station with teacher-led instruction in the classroom, but also separate stations for computer learning and collaborative activities. Uh, Second, there's a lab rotation, which very much mirrors this first style, except in the online instruction stage or station, the students may rotate out of the classroom to a freestanding computer lab or library media center. This allows the school to leverage its technological infrastructure a little better. There is also an individual rotation, which is the same concept as the previous two, but rather than moving through a universal rotation for the class, each student has their own playlist, so they may spend more time at one station or not visit another. A fourth model is the flipped classroom. This truly flips the idea of homework and schoolwork. The students receive online lessons or lectures at home via a technological device, and when they come to school, they have guided practice with a teacher who can help them explore the information they've learned. A fifth model is Flex, which is very individualized. In the Flex model of blended learning, students will spend the majority of their time at online instruction, but they may seek additional support through a breakout session or through an individual teacher as they need it. It's much more student controlled. A sixth form is a la carte, which works about as you would think based on the name. The students have traditional face-to-face classes at school, and they add one online course from home with an online teacher. This is demonstrated in the yellow lines. This model really works well for secondary education, where they may not have the resources at the local school to provide a specific enrichment course or elective, and the student can participate in the normal curriculum at school, plus that one class online. The seventh and almost reverse of the sixth is enriched virtual blended learning, where almost the entire experience is online learning, but there are limited face-to-face attendance days, something like 2 times a week. So with all of these methods that are beneficial in delivering instruction, how are they beneficial? Well, they improve instruction by providing differentiation. I come from a special education background, and one of the most time-consuming tasks is to find a way to differentiate general curriculum instruction for each individual student with disabilities that I serve. In a blended learning environment, the students might have their accommodations built into their device, such as it may read them a presentation that other students are reading themselves, or it may highlight information, or maybe I can remove distracting answers if I have to provide fewer response options, all through the delivery seamlessly to the other students. It also provides mastery-driven learning, which is a boon, especially to students that I would serve in a multi-needs environment. This allows them to continue to drill on the same topic until they pass level of mastery advancing to the next level, rather than saying it's the second Tuesday of the month and therefore we need to move the curriculum forward. And as in the a la carte mode, it allows access to more enriching materials. If differentiation is a time-consuming task, so too is properly enriching instruction for those top few students who may not be able to maintain attention while the rest of the class is trying to catch up to information that they already have mastered. In addition to improving your instruction, blended learning can empower learners as it goes. It encourages collaboration and develops social emotional learning. A large part of the way that blended learning is structured revolves around discussion questions online. Students may work in groups and present information as subject matter experts back to the rest of their class. They will begin to see one another as resources that are valuable and themselves as well are valuable. And it helps develop critical thought because all of the students, through receiving feedback from each other and the teacher, will not just stop at that level 1 answer when they're involved in a discussion or involved in these reporting back groups, but rather they'll have to dig in and stretch their brains to accommodate other points of view. So if blended learning is so helpful, what's stopping us from having it implemented everywhere? Well, of course, the obvious answer is cost, right? Every student needs access to reliable internet and a device. These are student-centered issues. Beyond internet availability, there's a real demand on the student's time outside of the school day in the vast majority of these models. And many students, especially at the secondary level, are nearing primary caregiver responsibility for siblings or nieces and nephews, as well as working and paying part of the bills. So that is a consideration. In addition, there are school structure issues. There's the issue of workforce retraining. Many teachers who have been in the field for 20 or 25 or 30 or more years may not be as familiar with technology as students coming out of school today. Through no fault of their own, they are very capable professionals, but they may need additional training in order to utilize these tools. Besides that training, there's other organizational growing pains. Think about the fact that the school now may have to manage on the order of 3,000 individual devices plus loaners. What happens when a student is supposed to take an online exam and their individual device isn't charged, or they left it at home that day? These are things that schools can plan for, but until they actually start to encounter them, they won't be ready for all of them. There's also the concept of inertia. With all of the various challenges facing educators and administrators today, it's going to be difficult to convince everyone to tear something down to the studs and rebuild it based on a method of technology, rather than continuing on as it always has to meet the standards and continue to turn the page. So if you have decided to implement some level of blended learning in your class, how can you get started, or where are the resources? Well, first, I really encourage you to view these two videos I've linked here, Station Rotation and Flipped Classroom Methods from the Blended Learning Universe. I got a lot out of them. Individually, start small. You don't have to make your entire class some technological nirvana on day one. Find one app or incorporate technology into one project as a response option. Find a small way to build it in, ask your students for feedback, and continue to grow from there. Encourage online discussions that incorporates so much of blended learning, but all of those social emotional learning skills that we talked about earlier. And this helps build a community online. You may hear from students more online that don't speak up in class. All of this is part of how you should build into your blended learning experience. Finally, consider using any student mobile devices as a gateway to blended learning. There's a lot of great apps that read QR codes, which are basically just fancy barcodes that you can print out from any computer, and you can have them walk around the room and take pictures of them with their phone, and it will connect and allow them to explore various things. So that might be a good foothold into blended learning. I've included here my references. If you're interested in blended learning, I do recommend you check them all out, but I've marked with an arrow the Blended Learning Universe website. It's very accessible and has a wealth of information. I really do encourage you to check that one out. Thanks for your time.